I mean, we're thinking about forming an all Epstein, Ghislaine Maxwell, Donald Trump scandal channel. It's not that we're converting Legal AF into that. There's just so much news that we have to cover hourly because the fearless leader, Donald Trump, especially when he's tired and mentally decrepit, says things out loud like, the reason I stopped talking to Jeffrey Epstein is he was stealing young girls from my spa and I didn't like it. That sounds like a confession, not a defense to his cover-up of the Epstein scandal. I cover that. I cover everything related to Ghislaine Maxwell and the relationship between her lawyer and Donald Trump's criminal defense lawyer and how this is all kabuki theater to try to distract us from the cover-up on a new podcast that I do on Tuesday nights on the Midas Touch Network called The Intersection. And here's my clip about Epstein, Maxwell, and of course, Donald Trump. Let's start with what I think you want to hear about, which is the almost minute-by-minute reporting that we're doing on the Midas Touch Network about the Epstein scandal. And just so you know, in our audience are also the victims of Epstein, and they get lost here in the story. There are over 1,000 victims of Ghislaine, or now I heard her lawyer pronounce her name at a press conference, Ghislaine Maxwell. She's not a victim. I know they've been floating those talking points all weekend. She may be a victim. She's not a victim. She's the only surviving member of that conspiracy that led to child sex trafficking. That doesn't make her a victim. Just because the other guy died somehow while awaiting trial, that does not make you a victim. Oh, she never got to tell her story. That's the new one. Yes, she did. Yes, she did. When Epstein was indicted by the Trump administration, not the Biden administration, she was brought in as a witness. She had plenty of opportunities to tell her story and to, flip against him. No, she ran. They had to capture her. I don't know if people remember this. She was on the run. She was on the lam, and they had to capture her because she didn't want to get caught. And then by the time they caught her and they prosecuted her under the Biden administration, they didn't need her cooperation anymore. Because this wasn't about, yes, the powerful men who abused these girls should be brought to justice. Can we all agree to that? A Democrat, that's not a Democrat or Republican thing. That's a moral, humane, thing, and which I'm in favor of. So I'm not in favor of any cover-up whatsoever. But the whataboutism that drives this discussion for MAGA, well, Trump might have also participated, but what about Bill? What about this? And then we could play this all day long. This is like the banjo players in Deliverance. I could do this trick all night. What about Bill Clinton? What about Alan Dershowitz? Sorry, he was accused by Virginia Giuffre also. What about this one? What about that one? We could do this all day long. But where does that get us? We're talking about the moral depravity and the cracked character of the person that occupies the Oval Office. Because if he had nothing to hide, the Midas Touch Network wouldn't have to talk about this every hour, every day. It would, right? The fuel line would be cut because they would have done what everybody wanted them to do. Release the truckload, and I mean the truckload of evidence the Epstein files represent. Do that, regardless of whose names are in it. Put it up on a website. Put it up on a website. We'll all take a look at it together. Do that, okay? You don't need to pardon a convicted child sex trafficker. How disgusting that you're even considering it. It's not like, and I've said this in a prior hot take, it's not like she was a serial killer and we don't know where the bodies are buried. And we want to give some comfort to the families and she'll tell us if we give her immunity or a pardon or something. That's not what she's doing. She's trying to save her ass, and so is Donald Trump. And so she's got a lawyer that was probably brought in by Alan Dershowitz because they went together to Harvard and they were buddies. And then he comes in and he's friends with Todd Blanche, who's Donald Trump's personal criminal defense lawyer, a lawyer masquerading as the #2 member of the Department of Justice. And they all get together. Oh, I'm going to go talk to her. Donald Trump allows immunity to be given to her. Why does she need immunity? She's serving a 20-year sentence. Nothing says I'm guilty like I need immunity. Right? Donald Trump used to say, you got to take the fifth. You must be guilty, until he took the fifth 600 times in his fraud case. And just to kind of bring this forward. We talked about Trump being pissed off about a 17-year-old being poached from Mar-a-Lago as the reason he broke up with Jeffrey Epstein, as if that helps him. I don't think that helped him. That's one. Two, now she's so emboldened by having met with Todd Blanche, who went in there without a proper prosecutor next to him that knew the case. Let me explain this. Todd Blanche does not know the Maxwell Epstein case. There's a truckload of evidence, but he doesn't want to know it. He buried his head in the sand. He fired the prosecutor for Ghislaine Maxwell 3 weeks earlier. I think that was part of the conspiracy. James Comey's daughter gets fired. She's the only one with her team that know the case. You don't bring her in to do the interview? How about if she lies? Like she says, well, you know that blank blank was on the island, and then she can turn to her team and their laptops. No, he wasn't. And that's a lie. But he doesn't want to know if she's lying. He just wants to run interference and get 100 names down on a client list that she develops, not named Donald Trump. Well, one is named Donald Trump, and then the other 99 aren't. And then the media, can go chase the 99, the whataboutism, and we ignore Donald Trump's involvement in all of it. And sometimes it's not the crime, it's the cover-up. I don't have evidence, other than I've heard some rumors. I don't have evidence that Donald Trump participated in illegal sexual conduct. But I have eyes. I can see that there's some sort of cover-up going on. Who is he protecting? And there's reporting that insiders have said that Donald Trump is worried that there was, I don't know, he used some crazy word like tomfoolery or something. Like, we're talking about raping girls. There was some tomfoolery with you and Epstein? That sounds worse. And he thinks by setting all of these fires and all of these full court press distractions that we won't hold him accountable. I'll sue Rupert Murdoch in the Wall Street Journal. He's 95 years old. I'll ask for a fast deposition, which he just did down in Miami. You better watch it, because they're going to ask for a fast deposition of you. And I just read the new filing about Murdoch, and it looks to me like Donald Trump admitted in his papers that he didn't have the grounds to file the suit in the first place. Well, Rupert Murdoch's got all the evidence, and I don't have the evidence. Well, you don't have the evidence. How'd you file the case? I'll pick that up as that Murdoch responds to that new motion on the 4th of August. I'll do that for the next intersection. So finishing up Epstein, she's now so emboldened by her having been made queen for the day, that's what it's called, for the immunity, that she's only willing to testify to Congress if she gets full immunity from them and maybe a pardon. See, this is all about David Oscar Marcus, her lawyer. Lobbying. Have I said lobbying enough? Lobbying for a pardon. That's all this is about. Every time, if he sees a bank of microphones, even if it's not about his case, he runs up to it. And all he says is, she should get a pardon. She's a victim. But you know where he doesn't say that? In the filing he made to the United States Supreme Court 2 days ago. In fact, there is one set of facts that are immutable, that nobody can disagree with. Ghislaine Maxwell, is not arguing that her conviction should be overturned because she didn't do it. She's not arguing that her conviction should be overturned because the judge in the case, Judge Nathan, let in some improper evidence, or didn't let in some evidence that should have been let in, or there was jury tampering, or there was prosecutorial discretion, or the prosecutor didn't have the goods at the very beginning and there's something wrong with the indictment. She's not arguing any of that. For her, and to read her appellate brief, she had a fair trial. Not a perfect trial. Nobody gets a perfect trial. But she had a fair trial in front of a jury of her peers who 9-0 on a standard of beyond a reasonable doubt for the prosecutor convicted her for 20 years. No, what she's saying is it's like a technicality, a loophole, which already disgusts me and makes me want to vomit into my mouth. She says in her filing that there was an agreement 20 years ago, 15 years ago, that she was not a participant to, that she was not named in, that she did not sign, between Jeffrey Epstein and Alex Acosta's office, who was the U.S. attorney in the Southern District of Florida, in which they, think about this, 20 years ago. It's a lot of victims ago. They let Epstein off the hook on a federal prosecution in Florida to let him plead to one count of soliciting prostitution from a minor, a state claim. And in it, his lawyers negotiated that he would not be prosecuted by the Southern District of Florida if he pled guilty to that. And they also mentioned co-conspirators in some language. Her theory is that Jeffrey Epstein's lawyers were so stupid that they negotiated a narrow non-prosecution agreement for their client, which was limited to Florida or Southern District of Florida. But for everybody else, including people not even named in it, they negotiated a national non-prosecution agreement that she can take the benefit of. That is one of the, David Oscar Marcus is smart. That's one of the stupidest constructions of language I've ever heard. And I think the United States Supreme Court's going to be like, what? We're going to let out of jail a convicted child sex trafficker because her paramour, co-conspirator, boss, lover, boyfriend signed an agreement about the Southern District of Florida, and she gets the benefit of it to prevent a prosecution in New York? I mean, it doesn't even pass the straight face test as I'm telling the story. But I want it clear. When you see David Oscar Marcus or anybody else like Donald Trump one day saying that she's a victim or that she's innocent, she doesn't even believe she's a victim or that she's innocent. She wants out on a technicality. She wants out because Donald Trump's his ass is in a ringer. I know I just mixed metaphors there. He's up to his ass in alligators. That's better, and needs to save it. And so he's gonna, so this is it, man. They're gonna working together. And Congress, look, they're about to go on recess at the rate that the Senate is trying to shove through cabinet positions, ambassadorships, judges, and other federal officers for Donald Trump. They're going to do recess appointments. They're going to get the House not to do their little mini bullshit session to avoid recess. They're going to shove through over the summer lots of Trump appointments. That's coming, and we'll watch it and see what the Democrats can do to kind of throw a monkey wrench into that. Welcome back. They finally gave me my own show. You can't put baby in the corner. They finally gave me my own show. I don't know if it was to shut me up or it was because they really believe in my commentary. I think it's the latter. Anyway, Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern time on the Midas Touch Network, we do the with no commercial version of it that we put up on the Legal AF YouTube channel here and on Substack as well. So we got all that going on every Tuesday night, and I could use a little love there. We're trying to build this pro-democracy new podcast. I sit at that intersection of law and politics for you. I don't blow smoke or sunshine. I'm not censored. It's 45 minutes or so of just me. Sometimes I have guests. I'm going to have Katie Fang on soon. But join me on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern time on the Midas Touch Network. Download it wherever you get your audio podcast from. That helps. Leave 5-star reviews and comments. I read the comments. So until my next report, this is Michael Popok. Can't get your fill of Legal AF? Me neither. That's why we formed the Legal AF Substack. Every time we mention something in a hot take, whether it's a court filing or a oral argument, come over to the Substack. You'll find the court filing and the oral argument there, including a daily roundup that I do called, wait for it, Morning AF. What else? All the other contributors from Legal AF are there as well. We got some new reporting. We got interviews. We got ad-free versions of the podcast and hot takes. Where? Legal AF on Substack. Come over now to free subscribe.